Today's topic is climate change. Hello, everyone. Good to be with you once again. Today, we are really very lucky to have with us Vinod Thomas. He's held very high positions at the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank, but he's not going to talk about that today. He's written a book on climate change, big fat book, and he's going to tell us all about climate change and how we should respond to it. These days, he's a professor, so I hope he doesn't profess too much and tells it to us in simple language. Over to you, Vinod.
Thank you, Subodh. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be with you here today. Um, uh, the book does talk a lot about climate change, but the details of what is happening and unfolding, they are well known. They are headline news every day. What I would like to stress at the outset is a message that is quite dramatic and striking, that climate change represents the biggest divide we have seen between scientific knowledge and human action to deal with it. Yes, we hear a lot of good stories about new technologies, new financing, but they remain boutique examples. As a civilization, as humanity, the gulf between what we have known for decades on the disastrous effects of climate change and what actions have been taken, that is probably the most striking thing I wanted to start with.
Okay.
This
It's dramatic for sure.
Yes,
That we know it,
absolutely.
but we don't do it.
We don't do it. In fact, as of now, as of this minute, the scientific projections of even a decade ago are proven to be conservative, meaning the floods and the heat waves, they are much worse than predicted then. At the same time, carbon emissions in the air, they are rising, not falling. We are going the wrong way, despite some good examples of progress. And most strikingly, in the first few days of June, we surpassed the threshold of 1.5 degrees beyond pre-industrial levels of warmth, which eventually climate scientists say is the significance of an ice-free planet. So
Wow.
we are at the tipping point of some of the notable thresholds as well.
Wow.
So that's the first observation of reality that needs to be changed, can be changed. There is still a window of opportunity. It may be slightly ajar, but what can we practically do and what are the top priorities would be the next question.
Okay, so let's hear. I mean, you have posed the problem that this is a very serious problem. The science is clear, the actions are not there. So now let's hear your solutions.
Now, turning to what can be done and what is being done, it's quite natural for us to focus on financing. It's quite natural to focus on as well technology. Those two are essential ingredients, no question about it. However, when you think about it, the underlying issue may be deeper. In the case of COVID-19, also, let's call it a wicked or a super wicked problem that could have been even more disastrous. Financing was forthcoming eventually. Within 9 months, the OECD countries raised $15 trillion to deal with it, compared to the 100 billion that we are struggling for climate finance, right? So if the will is there, the monies are going to be coming. Similarly, the vaccines were produced in a record time, in a year, 18 months, and that replicates in many other cases as well. So my sense is that the financing and technology, critical as they will come provided the public opinion has to very strongly press for action, especially when there are winners and losers of any change that is involved. And the politicians who drag their feet on climate action will have to be pressed to act in the interest of the society. That shift needs to take place. It is beginning to take place. And I'll tell you why, in the sense that if you ask people if climate change is a reality, 10 years ago, there may have been ifs and buts. But today, I don't think anyone would question that. But then if you ask the question, is climate change anthropogenic,
Yeah,
human caused?
yeah,
Half would say yes, half would say, I'm not sure, or I don't think so.
yeah.
And then the critical question for action, financing and technology, are not those two questions. You can say whatever you want. Are you willing to put money or support action for climate ahead of few other priorities? There, the Yale review or the feedback study suggests that it is extremely ambiguous at the country level. And one distinction I might make, it
Yeah,
is more ambiguous for mitigation, which is prevention,
right,
and less ambiguous for adaptation, because adaptation, you can say, it can be shown to benefit a country
right,
itself,
right.
whereas mitigation, its benefits spill over to everybody, including those who are not taking any action at all.
So
So
just to
mitigation is
clarify,
political.
yeah, just to add, mitigation means doing renewable energy, energy efficiency, those kinds of things, getting crops better, right? That's mitigation, right?
Absolutely.
That brings
Mitigation,
about change. That means people have to change and they may be reluctant to do that.
that's correct. And its benefits in terms of less warmth and less floods and so on spill over to those who are not mitigating as well. So
Right.
there is a question of burden sharing and moral hazard and all of that.
Yes.
Whereas in the case of adaptation, and as you gave the examples for mitigation, let me mention the adaptation examples. It would be better drainage systems, maybe even coastal defenses like sea walls when in situations like Mumbai or even Singapore and so on, where the benefits you can show politically to accrue to the citizens of that country. So
Right.
there, although financing is very tough, and there again, the industrial countries have a responsibility to finance poor countries who bear much less of the blame or for the causation of the issue. Nevertheless, the public willingness to support that would be stronger.
Okay.
So I
Can I
think those
summarize
two.
it in this way? If you adapt, you benefit. If you mitigate, who knows who benefits?
That's correct.
Right.
And absolutely. And who knows who will benefit, and the benefit may come in some time later.
Right.
It's not going to be immediate. In the
Right.
case of adaptation, you build better drainage, the next flood would be more palatable.
Right. Like in Pakistan, if they had better drainage when that flood hit them, and even in Mumbai, you see the floods come, but there's no. So yeah, I understand what you're saying. That adaptation brings quick benefits, mitigation brings distributed benefits going all over the place. So you spend the money, but your neighbor may also benefit.
That's correct. And Pakistan, that you mentioned, is a fantastic example. This may be about the greatest floods we have seen. In addition to that, you can also add the northern Italy phenomenon just a couple of months ago. And earlier, on the storm side, the ones that hit the Philippines, Hurricane Haiyan, these would be at the very top. But in the case of the Pakistan floods, I don't know of many where one-third of the country was underwater. And the
Right.
finance minister did say exactly the point you made, which is these floods, they are no fault of ours.
Right.
They were created externally. And so mitigating this kind of floods, preventing them for the future, is a global burden.
True.
However, we will need to do what we can to adapt and cope.
Yes.
And so we clearly have to recognize both mitigation and adaptation are essential, but the split between those two efforts across countries is likely to vary.
Yeah, I read one sentence in your book that really hit home this message to me, that we can't just think of mitigation. Like, can't go around the country saying renewable energy, renewable energy. We can't just think of adaptation. We have to think of both of them at the same time. And we have to think of them in the context of economic development. They should be
That's correct.
mainstream parts. That sentence really carried a very powerful message to me. Just
Absolutely.
that one sentence, but it said
Yes,
a lot to
yes.
me.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. And you mentioned in the context of economic development, which is pertinent in the sense countries are still in the process of reducing poverty and making it as equitable as possible, and so on, with ups and downs. But when you have these heat waves that we have witnessed this year, South Asia probably is the one that was hit the hardest, but it's all across the world. The effect on agricultural productivity is immediate. It's stark. And you can connect it to the scientific reasons for that as well. That affects economic development in real time. So actions on climate, can we look at them as actions for development as well? And
Yeah.
that will shift the calculus of finance ministers who still see growth-oriented policies versus environmental policies. And that may be the critical piece that we need to change the mindset and then lead to popular demand for action. That is to say, climate action does cost, but climate inaction costs even more for
Yes.
development.
That's a very powerful sentence right there. The climate action costs, but climate inaction costs even more. Right.
That's correct.
Right. It
And
may
that
not
is,
cost today, but it may cost a few years down the road when, yeah, okay. I'm glad you said that. It's very good to hear you say that. It's a very powerful piece. And I just to repeat, what you're saying is that you cannot say we are for economic growth, not for the climate change actions, because economic growth requires that the climate not be berserk. Okay.
that's correct.
Right. I mean,
Absolutely.
what kind of growth are you going to get in Pakistan when 1/3 of it is flooded?
That's right. That's right. And climate action in that context is an action for poverty reduction at the same time.
Okay.
And that recognition could change or move the needle on policy actions by finance ministers.
Okay. All right.
Now, you also mentioned the GDP as we went along. Um, that is clearly an indicator of development as we
Yes.
use it. I mean,
Yes.
it shows the expansion of the economy, but it's also a problem. And the problem is GDP, as we all know, is gross domestic product. It does not net out the damages. So, in the climate context, it poses a big issue. It may be an issue for all kinds of other reasons. However, when you do not net out the damages you cause to the others in terms of carbon emissions, etc., you're giving an encouragement for any kind of growth, including ones that are carbon intensive. You don't make the distinction. You don't ask the question, is GDP from clean energy or is it from coal? And so, as long as we rank countries and their performance and incentives for investment on the basis of GDP, we have a problem because you can't blame the country leaders for quickly pushing for destructive growth that makes the climate situation worse in order to attain a much higher short-term GDP growth. So this change will be critical and one that multilateral organizations like the IMF and the World Bank need to take on board. The economics profession, which also rewards, by and large, straight GDP growth at all expense and without making the distinction whether it's coming from carbon emitting growth or clean growth. And that is, in this sense, a vital part of climate action as well.
Okay. All right. It's a good point that, look, economists have not really discussed what they actually have known for years. This whole issue of externalities dates 1930s. They know all about it, but they still continue to ignore it when it comes to what is the correct way to measure economic progress, right? Okay, good. Let's go on.
Okay, and so now, if I may link back to the book that you mentioned at the beginning, which is called Risk and Resilience in the Era of Climate Change. What about risk and resilience? So we've talked about climate change. In the case of risk and resilience, obviously they apply not just to environmental issues, the pandemics, financial crisis, and so on. The risks we have always lived with. We don't necessarily avoid all of them, but you find ways of coping with them. And resilience building is the best answer to deal with risks. But in the era of climate change, our revelation, or maybe this is something we all instinctively know but do not act upon, is that when risks are rising systematically, and if they are almost predictable, not exactly when they'll hit, but that they will hit with greater ferocity, and when they are partly anthropogenic or human caused, then the resilience implications are very different than if they were purely natural phenomenon. Because if they were natural phenomenon, good economics would tell you, I mean, don't overbuild protection, because what if it didn't happen? Then you would have wasted all that
Right,
investment.
right,
So
right,
be
right.
clever, calibrate. But when you know it's going to happen,
Yeah,
and when you know that it's human cause, good economics tells us build, and even overbuild if the scientific projections have been conservative. And so resilience building in the era of climate change is not just about building back, but it's more about building forward. So as we face these tough, and this is a difficult issue, but these tough challenges like the Pakistan flood, like the Italian flood, part of the job clearly is to save lives and get back to normal. But a part of the job, knowing that this is going to happen again, and maybe even worse, two of them a year rather than one in 10 years,
mhm,
um, you need to build resilience to prevent, in the sense of reducing the negative impacts down the road. So building forward in that sense, while you're also
okay,
coping, is a big challenge. I mean, politically, it's very hard to pull off. There are no photo opportunities for prevention. There are lots of photo opportunities for saving lives immediately. But
right.
nevertheless, we did not do that. I think all bets are off as we go forward.
Okay, so could we sort of have a little bit of discussion on what resilience building means? Is it simply that you bounce back? You have systems in place which allow you to bounce back? Or is it also that when you get hit, you're hurt less by the hit? Or, it's like somebody hits you, uh, somehow you have less pain and you are able to get up quickly. Is that resilience, or how would you explain resilience to?
Right. So resilience is a much more precise concept than risk, in the sense that risk is surrounded by much greater uncertainty
Mhm.
and as the nature of the phenomenon, whereas resilience is about specific things you do to reduce that risk in the future. So that said, in the case of resilience, traditionally we would think if you fell from the bed in the morning, you get up and get back to bed, you are resilient if you're able
Right,
to do that. If you're
right,
not resilient, you'll have trouble. You need help from somebody else to
right,
get back to bed. So
right.
having that ability and capacity to get back to bed is
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
It's necessary. However, what the resilience requirement is for the climate era is that the bed that you want to get back to has suddenly expanded.
Okay. So
So
you
you
don't
need
fall off.
you so when you fall off and as you get up, you need to also be cognizant and build, while you do that, the strength to get back to a higher bed
Okay.
or higher plateau. And that is part of the building of resilience. And what I meant by not just building back better, and you could even say building forward.
Okay.
Um, And the specifics of that, of course, are a whole host of things, but importantly, mitigation in addition to adaptation.
Okay. All right.
Adaptation
So,
is very much about getting back to the bed, but mitigation would be about having that additional fortitude to avoid a bigger problem down the road.
so it's a way, in a way, to reduce the risks also, right?
Absolutely. And this is a critical point. If we take risk as God-given,
Right.
and the economist's term, exogenous,
Right.
yeah, I don't control it, it just hit me,
Yeah.
then no. But you have rightly said that it affects, resilience can affect risk, which is a huge revelation or recognition that risk itself can be, in economist terms again, endogenous.
Yeah.
That
I
is, it is
understand.
subject to policy change. You can do
Right.
something about it. It's
Right.
human cost.
Right.
And so if once you recognize that, you don't say that I'm in a highly prone country, period, but you begin to try to shape that risk by building resilience, such as better drainage systems, seawalls, education campaigns, changing people's mindsets, zoning, all the things that you can think of, in addition to reducing the carbon footprint.
Okay. All right. Let's go on. I know you have many things to say, so let's go on.
Okay. So the the events of the very recent past are extremely both poignant and prescient, in the sense that we have now gotten a taste of how severe climate catastrophes can be. And so we need to change the mindset and even the language from problems of the future in 2100 to problems of today.
Right.
And that is an essential shift that needs to take place. The floods of Italy, the floods of Pakistan, they are right now, right here, right at the doorsteps. So no longer these are faraway places and in the distant future.
Right.
So that recognition is one piece. And that is obviously the worrying part. On the positive side, what happened in Switzerland in the last few days of a public demand or pressure or a public poll that revealed that the majority of the people, maybe close to 2/3, not quite, would like not just to recognize climate change, but for Switzerland to aim for net zero carbon emissions.
Okay.
That is the world we want to get to for everybody.
Okay.
Now, Switzerland is a very interesting case, and it's more manageable, etc., etc. And it already has a relatively more favorable renewables position to start with, say, compared to India, which relies 2/3 for coal, or China maybe 50%, but nevertheless, Southeast Asia and East Asia and South Asia are starting with a very high reliance on oil and gas and coal, and so it's much harder for them to talk about net zero.
Right.
However, this example is exhilarating because against the floods and the terrible heat waves and things going the wrong way, there is a small example that suggests that if public opinion could swing in favor of taking these net zero actions in country after country after country in the next 5 to 10 years, then the technology and the financing will flow in the right direction. It's too early to say whether the Swiss example would be replicated. Even the Swiss would say, we have agreed on the what, but we have not figured out the how.
Understood.
But we have to start somewhere.
Right.
So that was the big good news that I wanted to leave here.
Okay.
That qualifies what was said in the book, which was also looking forward with the message that there are many technological ideas that could improve that equation. Among them, solar probably tops the list of what can rapidly scale up because the prices have fallen sharply in the last 10 years. The prices can fall further in the next 10 years. If the pricing of solar is absolutely competitive, I mean, no questions asked,
Right.
and if this distribution and storage can be improved as they are becoming better, then that offers a big opportunity for developing countries as well to go renewables. Uh, Green hydrogen,
Yeah.
that's a whole family of likely possibilities, and carbon capture. Those two taken together, if they could go to scale and if they could be commercial, that would be a fantastic answer. But they're probably 10 years down the road. And at the moment, the costs are not favorable, unlike in the case of solar and wind, I might add. Hydro has its own issues, but many countries have the advantage of hydro, like Brazil. Nuclear, we did not mention, but there are smaller modules and quicker delivering nuclear energy possibilities now. You're on mute right now.
Yeah, no, I was talking to somebody. That's why I was on mute.
Yeah.
No, I
So,
was listening to you. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, perfect. So the technological possibilities taken together could surprise us. They could come online much faster than we thought. But at the moment that we are speaking, we are looking at these two, we are in a crossroads looking at these two trends. One, carbon emissions heading the wrong way
Yeah,
in early June, surpassing that 1.5 degrees centigrade
right.
threshold. At the same time, a country announcing its majority of these people want net zero, and some very interesting possibilities on the technological front. Which will win the game is the critical question.
Yeah, but your view is that in the end, these are doable if the will is there.
That's my view. That's very much my view. And actually, if I would go further, I would say my view is that economies will eventually land. We always find an equilibrium. They will land in the case of climate change as well. The critical question is, will it be a soft landing or a hard landing?
Okay.
And for a soft landing, meaning one that is a inhabitable planet with a chance of recuperating and regenerating and all of that. For that, yes, technology and financing are the critical ingredients. But my view, as you rightly said, is that while we worry about that, we should, number one, be concerned whether people's mindsets have changed sufficiently to see climate action as development oriented, to change the definition of GDP so that we count the right things on progress,
Okay.
and therefore people press politicians to please act in time for a better, low carbon, a greener growth path that is going to be more sustainable. This is doable. This is what we want. But given the huge divide between scientific knowledge and action in the past, this does require for a radical change, not an incremental marginal change.
Okay.
Since 1993 environmental summit, World Environmental Summit, we have spent all these decades at grand meetings, which taken together have not produced the results in the sense that we are going the wrong way still.
Right.
So what is needed is really a sharp turn, not an incremental marginal turn, and a transformational turn, which also includes ideally change in lifestyles, etc., which will make everything that we discussed so far much more interesting, much more elegant, and much more doable.
Okay.
That would be lifestyles in terms of transportation, clearly, lifestyles in terms of diet, lifestyles in terms of the consumption patterns.
Yeah.
None of that necessarily has any negative implications on well-being,
Right.
nobody would recommend that. But they do call for change. And so that would be the last piece to add to this, that if lifestyles could change, that makes the equation hang together much better.
Okay. That's a key point. That is not just telling the politicians to do something. We also need to do something as ordinary people. We just can't
Yes,
continue to eat and consume and drink in the same way as before, because we are the source of the problem in the end.
at the
Things are
end, yes,
things are produced because we want to consume them, right?
yes.
And
At the end of, absolutely, that's
right,
the bottom line at the end of the day.
right. All right. Anything else you'd like to add, Vinod?
This is a very good place to wrap up, in the sense that
Yes.
you went from the beginning and you got to the end of transformational change, including in people's way of thinking and lifestyles, all doable, but requiring quite a change, and they are not incremental or marginal. And that recognition is important, because this does call for a much more circular and regenerative economy,
Mhm.
rather than destructive and growth bottom line economy.
Okay. Thank you so much. Let's say bye to the viewers. And let me just say thank you again to Vinod. It's very hard to get somebody as distinguished as he is to be on my show. But so I'm really grateful that you have done it. And bye to the viewers. I'll be back again next time with another expert or another young person to have a discussion with. Bye for now.
Thank you, Subodh.